Boy, this is my 4th time at the Center for Fiction, but it's my first time with you guys. And my first time. Second. You read Ava and XOX? Yeah. Wow. Thumbs up on Ava XOX? But that was last year. You're so much more grown up, and Speed of Light is so much more grown up, right? You're probably in the middle of it, or you just started, or something finished. Oh, good. Wow, that really is pretty cool. So I guess some of the stuff I might have said, I'll say super fast, and we'll get straight to Q&A. But that's very cool that you, I'm going to call you fans. If you're reading 2 of my books, I don't care if you don't even like them. I'm calling you a fan. So, alrighty, well, you know who I am, and you know I write fiction and nonfiction. I don't know if I had this very same picture last year, but that's my mom and my dad, and me with my dad, and me with my big brothers. And I'm going to tell you something. This book, since this doesn't spoil anything for anybody, you know that it's about a girl, Sophia, who loses her mom. Well, my mom did die 2 years ago, but my dad died when I was pretty young. So a lot of the feelings that I put into this book are feelings that I had in my mid-20s. And that's how fiction works, you know. I wrote a book for teenagers and tweens, and I used what I felt in my 20s, and I wrote it when I was a complete and utter grown-up in my 50s. That's just how it works, and it's not like when my dad died, I thought, oh, someday I'm going to work super hard for a decade until I get a novel that says what I want to say. It's just that if you're a writer or an artist or a musician or even just a creative person in the world or a person in the world, everything that happens to you now stays inside you. And it might be that when you're talking to your kid who's this age, that you might be talking about books and thinking about something that you learned at Center for Fiction. It all goes in there, the good stuff and the bad stuff. So try to stay away from the bad stuff because it's all going in there. Stick with the good stuff. And just while I'm doing the parent thing, you know, Mother's Day is coming. For those of you who have moms, all they really want from you is like, you know, a hug and some love and one of those sweet notes in your own handwriting, thanking them. Even if you're mad at them, give them a pass on Mother's Day. And for those of you who don't have moms, I feel for you because I don't have a mom to call this Mother's Day. So just know that you're not alone and let yourself be sad and mad and cry and laugh and remember your mom if you ever had a mom in a nice way. And for those of you who, everybody in the room, just know that all the happy days like Mother's Day, for some people they're sad, or Father's Day, for some people they're sad. And if you want to be a good friend, you can even say, this must be a hard day for you if you know that somebody's going through something. Anyway, moving on. So you probably saw this last year, but now you're a year older, seeing it in a different way. When I learned to write, I kept a diary and I wrote about writing. And I buyed my lunch at school, the menu was pizza, and it was good. So it was not clear when I was a little kid that I was going to grow up and be an eloquent writer. And you guys probably right now still make mistakes when you're spelling and use words twice because you're not giving yourself enough time to read it again and make it better. And also because you're kids. So just give yourself a break. Sometimes it takes time to become the amazing adult that you're destined to become. When I was your age, I was still kind of scared of big books. Like if somebody gave me a book and let me meet the author, I would read it. But otherwise, it would just feel like such a long thing with so many words inside. So I wasn't sort of a natural born reader until somewhere in the middle of high school. How many of you keep journals? Or, you know, it could be like a diary sometimes. So that's a fair and honest answer. And for those of you who had your hand in the air, awesome. But for those of you who didn't, this summer, what would happen if you just bought like a spiral notebook for, you know, a couple of bucks? Or it could be a lovely, lovely moleskin book. But basically an empty book. And you said, wait, what grade are you guys in? Seventh. So you said summer after 7th grade, you know, or 7th grade summer. Almost sounds like a title. Maybe that's my next book, 7th grade summer. Oh no, I need a plot. Anyway, you could it would just be so fun for you, if you were to want to just have a writing notebook where you just stuck your thoughts. Like, I am so mad at my brother. You know what? It's not for school. It's not for a teacher. You can put it there. And then when you're all done, you're a little bit less mad. And you might even see things a little bit
from his point of view. Or I have such a crush on, and you just put it there. Or if you like writing, it can be a little bit more, today the breeze felt like, and then you write about what the breeze felt like or what the peach tasted like or whatever. It's just kind of a place to put your thoughts that never answers back. And if you end up liking to write, if you've done a whole bunch of just scribbling over the summer, not thinking much about it, suddenly by 8th grade, you're like writing. I'm already a better writer. So keep writing, keep reading. My first book, Girl Talk, which is written for kids exactly your age, came out in 1990. It's still in print all these years later, and it came out in many languages. And you can get it at libraries or Amazon New or Amazon Secondhand, or it's easy to find. It still has a whole lot of kind of life advice. But maybe my first book was in 5th grade when I wrote this for my 5th grade teacher, The Story of My Life. So I still like to write and rewrite, and this is sloppy copy, and I still do. It's not that now that I'm an expert now, I don't have sloppy copy. I still do. I'll write something like this, and then I'll start making it better, and then I'll keep on getting inspired, and then I'll put it, make a nice clean copy, and to help myself, I'll make it on yellow paper, blue paper, but then I still will make it, it's almost like starting from zero. Not really, that's not true. It's just revising is so much a part of it. You have a vision, and then you have a whole bunch of revision. So if you want to write or sing or make music or whatever, you're not going to just suddenly get there. You just got to keep, a lot of it's work. So then, as you may remember from last year, I am the Dear Carol columnist at Girls Life magazine. This is the new one that just came out, and it's kind of fun. They give it, so this is like a nail biter wrote me, and they have a full page ad for the book in your hand, so that's kind of fun. And I still do that. And so if you guys have questions, I would love to answer them pretty soon. So the question I had for myself nearly 20 years ago was, Carol, you are writing for teenagers. You love teenagers, but you always meant to write a novel. How come you're only writing nonfiction? And so I really had to give myself some advice. And one of it was like, how about trying? How about trying to take yourself seriously? If you have a dream, instead of just being like, I'm so bummed I'll never, ever get to be a novelist, like, give it a go, But I took a class here in New York at the Y, just a regular old class at the Y, and it was on fiction writing, and it was really helpful. And then I got some therapy. I probably confessed this to you last year, because I knew I was sort of blocked. And the reason was because my mom had wanted to write a novel, and she'd never quite written a novel. And I think part of me didn't want to best my mom, or didn't want to succeed where my mom had failed, because you feel funny about that. But what are you going to do? Not realize your dreams just because your mom or dad didn't get to go the distance? You guys are in this amazing school with fun field trips and cool opportunities. So I'm sorry if your mom or your dad didn't get to do everything they wanted to do, but they'll be, maybe the relationship is complicated too, but your job, you owe it to yourself to get as far as you can go. If you got money to give back to your mom or dad, wonderful, and hopefully they'll be really proud of you. But the point is, this is about you, I finally wrote a post-it and posted it on my computer, and it was like, excuse me, Mom, but I have a novel to write. And it felt kind of like a big deal to do that, because it was like apologizing to my mom, but it was a bummer that she didn't realize her dream, but I had to realize, mine. So that's interesting. Ooh, Freudian. So I took a class, I got some therapy, and I gave it a go. And then I got all these rejection letters, tons and tons of them. I still get them. It's very annoying. I'm going to read you some. But finally, Melanie Martin came out by Knopf, which was this amazing publisher. And then it did well, so then I got to do 3 more of them, and that was so much fun. And then my next 3 novels, as you know, because you read Ava XOX, were about Ava, the palindromic word nerd. And remember, palindromes are the same backwards and forwards, like do, geese, see God. Or if you step in dog do, you go, dog do, good God. And then you explain to the person next to you that that's the same backwards and forwards. Anyway, see? Look at that. Dog do, good God. I know that's small, but, oh, did I do something? No. Okay. So that's me upside down. I look a little bit like the Ava character. Did any of you read Roller Girl? Does that look familiar? A book called Roller Girl by Victoria Jamison. She's the one who does the art, because I don't do the art. I am just a writer. I'm proud to be a writer, but I cannot draw to save my life. So there are other people who can do both, and there's some people who do covers. Like the cover of this book, I really like it. It had some covers. Oh, wait, I'm about to tell you that. Getting ahead of myself. Anyway, 3 years ago, more or less today, I got this lovely review in the New York Times, and that was a good thing, because this book also had gotten rejected by everybody. And then I did some more, and then there's my cat. Maybe you remember my cat from last year. Here he is, getting in the way. So then when Speed of Life was going to come out, my publisher, Source Books, they came up with some covers. And the thing is, they're not bad, they're fine, but they're not great. And I really worked so hard on this darn book that I didn't want it to have a cover that I didn't love. And I have an agent who's sort of my business partner, and so we talked together, and she said, well, let me tell them they got to keep trying harder. And they came up with like a bunch more covers, and we kept saying, meh, we don't love it. And we're trying to be polite about it, but it was like, you know what, get us a good cover. And so then they did, and I really love that cover. These are my daughter's cats. They have funny ears that go like this. They're called Highlanders. They jump. If they were here, they would be walking from on the top of those things, and we'd be worried that they were going to knock over the statues. So before I tell you about these starred reviews, I've already been mentioning rejection letters to you. So even this book that is in your hand, that last week the New York Post said was required reading. The New York Post every week picks 6 books and says must reads, and they picked this one as one of them. And it was in Vanity Fair last month, and it's got all these starred reviews, and here I am at the Center for Fiction. But before this publisher said yes and gave it the beautiful cover, it got so many no's. So I'm going to read you some of the no's, okay? I mean, it literally got years of rejection. And I just was like, are you kidding me? But I didn't give up on this book. There's some things that I write that get rejected, and I go, you know what? Maybe it's not as good as I thought. But this book, I just wasn't giving up. So one of the more recent rejections, this woman said, a book has to make the hair stand up on the back of my neck for me even to be able to consider it. I wish I could say that. Answer Me was one of those books for me, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to pass with deep reluctance. So at the time it was called Answer Me. And I'm like, really? I have to make the hair stand up on the back of your neck? This is hard. But the nice thing is she said more reasons why she didn't like it, or she didn't like it enough to publish it. And she said, every character is ultimately so wise, well-adjusted, and decent. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, because as the Dear Carol columnist, my job is to help you realize your dreams and not fight with your mom and get along with your sister and get the good boyfriend, not just, yay, I got a boyfriend, but like the kind, smart, nice guy who treats you well and cares about you and texts you not just to say, hey, come on over, My job is that, to help your life be better. But when I'm writing a novel, I have to mess up Sophia's life. If this novel, or Ava or Sophia or my character Melanie, is like, I love 7th grade. It's so fun. My friends are all so nice. And the boy I like likes me back. That is a boring novel, my friends. My job is to make things really no fun for Melanie. It's almost like you're hitting her with pebbles, Not enough that her mom died. You got to keep, you got to mess things up even more. You got to make it so that her dad has a girlfriend, some of you haven't gotten that far, that makes her gasp. You have to make it so that her friends who are there for her now are sort of like, come on, come to the party. You have to make it so that the boy she likes, that first guy, Miles, is a jerk, a rich jerk, but a jerk nonetheless. And you have to make it tricky. So I took from this, instead of just getting the rejection letter and feeling sad, mind you, I did feel sad, I was like, okay, wise, well-adjusted, and decent. Well, let me learn from that. Let me make things a little less good. Somebody said, I'm afraid the voice didn't quite grab me enough, which was very annoying because I knew that the voice thing was something that I can do. I can get into the voice of a kid. Partly it's because, number one, I was a girl. Number two, I had daughters. Number three, I've been writing for Girls Life since before you guys were born, long before. So I sort of have the voices of girls in my head. So that one wasn't very helpful. But one of them, she said, we also feel there should be more school scenes. I'm like, wow, what a good idea. Thank you for that. And I wrote some more school scenes. The two girls are set up to have a major showdown, but they become friends too quickly. Oh, okay, I'll have them have a major showdown. In other words, just the way you learn from your teachers, I learned from these editors. I didn't just get mad or sad. And again, I got mad and sad. Make no mistake. I was upset. It was very frustrating. But I also learned from the rejections and kept going. So when you apply later to jobs, maybe summer jobs, or colleges or ongoing high schools or whatever it is, or trying to get, books published, don't feel like someone's slamming the door on you. They might shut the door on you, but maybe as they're shutting the door, they might tell you why. You showed up to the interview and you took a phone call and you chewed gum. I'm sorry, we're not going to give you the job as a receptionist because you have to be not chewing gum during the interview, Or you said, like. No, try not to do that in the interview, Or when they said, why should we hire you? You said, oh, I don't know. Well, we're not going to hire you. You have to tell us why they should hire you, So sometimes if you don't get that first job, you use it. Don't get mad at yourself. Use it as, okay, what can I do better, So anyway, somebody finally said, didn't feel original enough, and then I have no doubt that Carol will have great success with it. Well, I don't know about great, but so far there's a Hollywood agent giving it to really cool people. Like right now, it's somewhere in the desk. Now that desk might be covered with books, but it's on the desk of like Tom Hanks and Reese Witherspoon and all these cool people. So send up good vibes, you guys, because often nothing happens. But this pretty powerful agent loves the book and says, let me see if I can do good things with it. So many rejections for years. I mean, I got a bunch of rejections when it was called, it had all these different titles. Anyway, it's such a hard work to get a book so that it's just a book in your hands. These books on the shelves, it looks like somebody dashed them off and somebody slapped a cover on them and threw them in the library. But in fact, it's it's the vision, it's the revision, it's convincing somebody else that your book is good. And then you got to try to get the reviews. And in this case, you read AVXOX. AVXOX didn't get that many reviews because it was part of a series. So it's just hard to get the reviews. And this is the first time in my whole life that I've gotten the starred reviews. I wrote 15 books, one of them that came out in all those languages, but I never got a starred review. So a starred review in some of these things, Publishers Weekly and stuff, it just means that it's the people kind of circled it, like, hey, this is a good one. So it's exciting to get attention for this book that nobody wanted for a long time. I don't think this is you guys, because this is Ava and Pip, but that picture is Center for Fiction picture. Whereas these two were like this year, so that's 3 years old. And it's just always fun to meet readers. But I also like meeting other authors. So, does anybody here know who this is? I guess I give you a hint down here. He's Colson Whitehead. He just got the Pulitzer, I think, for writing Underground Railroad, which is a little bit of a hard book, but maybe some of you would gobble it up. And this is my mom with a famous writer named Robert Frost. I don't know if that rings a bell, but he was the poet laureate when John F. Kennedy was the Kennedys, the president. Kennedy would have been 100 this year. Isn't that crazy? I think that's true. 63 is when he died in his 40s. Yeah, he would have been 100 this year, so now there's stamps of him. All the Light We Cannot See is a wonderful book. And here I am, a long time ago, with my daughter Emmy, whose name is a palindrome, E-M-M-E, my daughter Lizzie, and a famous children's book author named Judy Blume. So isn't that cool? That's Judy Blume, you guys. So my point is, I like meeting authors too. And I probably meet bunches of them every year because, oh, I'm glad I thought to say this. You know, some stuff in New York is expensive. Sometimes some stuff is expensive, but you can get a pass to go in free. If Barnes & Noble is having an author speak, it's free. All you got to do is get there 20 minutes ahead. Don't wait 10 minutes. Like Maya Angelou's speaking, if you get there 10 minutes ahead, you're going to be way in the back, you know. But if you get there 30 minutes ahead, if it's a super duper famous author, you just take a seat, you know, and it's amazing. So at my own neighborhood, Upper West Side Barnes & Noble, well, that's where I met Colson Whitehead, but that's where I've heard just tons and tons of authors. And also other things are free, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art. If you just wander in, it'll say suggested admission. Well, you can give them $1 if you have $1, quarter. You can say, I don't have any money on me. It doesn't matter. They'll just throw their door wide open. And whereas it takes you a long time to read Speed of Life or War and Peace, going to a museum, you're seeing everybody's masterpieces. You're just walking through, seeing something that maybe took somebody, you know, a year to paint. You can just look at it and give it 2 minutes, and it's kind of amazing. And I know some of you probably already love museums or art, and some of you are like, ugh, museums, that's stuffy. Trust me, you go to a museum, there's going to be something there that you like. And I used to write the Melanie Martin books, and I had this game that, because the mom was an art teacher, my alter ego in that book. My alter ego in this book is Dear Kate, because as you know, I am Dear Carol. But in the Melanie books, she was an art teacher. And so the kids would go to the art museums and they would play this game, and you know what it was called? It was called Point Out the Naked People, because there are all these naked people in the art museums. So I'd recommend, that's just a free thing you can do in New York. Walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, no charge, so fun. If you haven't done it, do it. Hanging out in Central Park, I mean, I don't mean hanging out and doing bad things. I mean, taking a brisk walk in beautiful Central Park. How fun is that? So New York is, you know, I speak at schools all over the place. I was in San Francisco Tuesday, like 2 days ago. But everybody wishes they're from New York. I was once speaking at a school in Alaska. They were way more impressed with the fact that I was a New Yorker than with the fact that I was an author. They were like, you're from New York? You're from New York? You know? So you guys live in New York, and it's like a playground for people all over the world. People like try to get on, you know, scrape together their money so they can come to New York. And I guess Speed of Life is set in New York. I mean, Ava and Pip, you may remember, sorry, Ava XOX, well, all the Ava series was set in Misty Oaks. I didn't even know what state that is. But Speed of Life is set in New York City. So we're very lucky that we are in New York City. And, you know, this summer when you have a little more time, take advantage of it. I mean, even just the zoos are fun. So I hope you keep reading and keep writing. And now I'd like to read to you. I'll read you one page, even though I know you have it in your hands already. And then I will answer any questions you have, okay? So this is the first page. Warning. This is kind of a sad story, at least at first. So if you don't like sad stories, maybe you shouldn't read this. I mean, I'd understand if you put it down and watched cat videos instead. I like cat videos too. Then again, this book is already in your hands, quite literally. It starts and ends on January 1, and I was thinking of calling it The Year My Whole Life Changed, or Life, Death, and Kisses, or maybe even The Year I Grew Up. For me, being 14 was hard, really hard. Childhood was a piece of cake. Being a kid in New York City and spending summers in Spain, that was all pretty perfect looking back. But being 14 was like climbing a mountain in the rain, in flip-flops. I hoped I'd wind up in a different place, but I kept tripping and slipping and falling and wishing it weren't way too late to turn around. This book does have funny parts, and I learned 2 giant facts. Number 1, everything can change in an instant. For worse, sure, but also for better. Number 2, sometimes if you just keep climbing, you get an amazing view. You see what's behind you and what's ahead of you, and the big surprise, what's inside you. So now I should tell you that this page I wrote maybe a year and a half ago, whereas some of these pages I wrote like 9 years ago, or 8 years ago, or 4 years ago. This book, of all my books that I've ever written, this one took forever for me to finish writing it, and then for it to be good enough to get not just published, but like well received in the world. I was on like New York One. You ever watch New York One TV a month ago? Anyway, like Avex OX, if you said how long did it take you to write, the answer is a year. If you said how long did it take you to write, the answer is 10 years. Not that I did nothing, but sometimes I'd put it aside for a while. But so in all honesty to all the people who rejected it, it probably wasn't as good when they saw it as it was later, you know? Like it got better and better. I think I wrote this page after it had already been accepted by this publisher, but I just thought, you know, I can keep making it better. I mean, even after it came out, even the book in your hands has a couple of typos and a couple of places where I thought, oh shoot, I said yes, and then I said yes again, like the next line. So there are a couple of places where I sent my publisher a note saying, when you come out with the second edition, do you mind making it a little better? And they said, no, that's great. I think if I kept doing it, they'd go, Carol, stop. Go work on some other book now. But this book is very near to my heart. So, any questions? Wait, this is the corner bookstore. Remember I told you, you know, book signings are free? So my book signing was exactly a month and a week ago, and a day ago, a month, a week, and a day, at the corner bookstore, which is at 93rd and Madison. And anybody who was walking by would see that in the window, and they could stroll on in. Free party. So, questions? Yes. Nice and loud.
When you were younger, did you have someone to write to about personal issues like
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that question. When I was younger, did I have somebody to write to about personal issues? Wow, I think the answer is nope, I sure didn't. You know, I didn't. There was no advice columnist that I knew about. I did when I was your age, 7th grade. I lived in Armonk. So this book goes from New York to Armonk. In my life, I went from Armonk to New York. But, and my next door neighbor, who's really nice, her name is Judy, she got the newspapers that had Dear Abby in them and Dear Ann Landers in them, who were twins, who were advice columnists, even though as twins they were in a feud. Isn't that nuts? Like, work it out, girls. But they, so even though I didn't write myself like, when will I get my period? I could read in other people's magazines or stuff. You know, I would read what other people wrote. So, yes.
Would you like to turn any of your books into a movie?
Yes, I would. So I'm really happy that that CAA right now is looking at my book and seeing if somebody gets interested. I personally don't have the skill sets to do that. Like I can write, and I love talking to readers, students, and I can market, which is part of it all, like promoting the book. In other words, I tweet. You can find my Facebook page. It's public, facebook.com, writer Carol Weston. You can like it. That'd be great. Instagram, Carol Weston NYC. I can do my part to get the word out that there's a book, but I can't alone turn the movie. So I'm hoping somebody else will want to do that, because wouldn't that be fun? Yes.
So you left the book on a cliffhanger. Are you making another?
This book?
Yeah.
You think it's a cliffhanger? We don't want to spoil it for others, but she starts out January 1 feeling kind of lost and sad and pitiful and awful and tiny and quiet, right? And she ends up being in a different place. Has everybody finished it? No. So I don't want to change it too much. So, no, this is a good question, and maybe later you can, no, it's a good question. And also it's a book, things are open to, a couple of people have written me already saying, do a sequel. So maybe if it feels like a cliffhanger, that's helpful for me. Thank you for that really good question, because I felt like I kind of left her in a better place. That doesn't spoil anything. But maybe it's also unclear, and then what happened. Interesting. Maybe we can talk about it later, like you and me. Yes. With your hand up over there. Yeah. Yep.
What is your favorite genre to write, and why do you prefer to write children's books?
What is my favorite genre to write, and why do I? These are such good questions. I can tell you're 7th graders and not like 5th or 6th graders. It's very impressive. What is my favorite genre? Genre. I like realistic fiction. That's what I like to read. That's what I like to write. I think it's awesome if you guys prefer fantasy or mystery or sci-fi or graphic novels or whatever you like, run with that. Romance fiction, like it's all good, especially in the summer. The point is just read. The more you read, and again, I wasn't a big reader at your age, but the second you kind of become a bigger reader, you just inhale the world and learn so much. But I like realistic fiction. So the Ava books, the Melanie books, and the Sophia books, there are no magic carpets, there are no dragons, there are no wizards, there's no magic. It's just real kids in real situations. So that's my favorite. Why do I like writing children's books? Look, there may come a day when you're a grown-up, and I'm even older than I am now, and I write a book for adults. It could happen. I guess, though, what I really like about writing in general for young people, whether it's the nonfiction like Girl Talk or the fiction, is that you can, and I think the teachers in this room probably feel the same way, you feel like you can really change lives. Like maybe, nobody has to raise their hand, but maybe there's somebody in this room who didn't really like to read that much, but Ave XOX was okay, and Speed of Life was pretty good, and all of a sudden they're like, maybe I'm not somebody who doesn't like to read. Maybe I'm somebody who just hadn't found the right books, and suddenly you become a reader. Like that can happen if you write for kids. Or there's so much sort of Dear Kate advice. Maybe there's something you get from my book, and at the end you're just a tiny bit changed. This can happen with adults too, but adults, you get a little more set in your ways. If you are an adult, and if you're 40 years old and you weigh 300 pounds, it's not like you don't know that Cheetos make you fat, somewhere along the line, and drinking 10 Cokes a day and smoking cigarettes. Somebody's told you that that's bad for you. Whereas if you're 12 and your big cousin says smoking's kind of cool, but I tell you smoking is just a horrible idea, terrible for your health. You might feel cool for 2 seconds, but you're going to shorten your life and maybe, it's just going to be, maybe invite lung cancer your way. You're a young person, you might go, wow, that was a piece of advice I hadn't quite gotten. I think I'm not going to eat as many Cheetos, drink as much stupid sugary soda, and smoke cigarettes. And I've just really given you a huge favor. So that's why I like to write for young people. I feel like I can be helpful. You didn't ask a question already, did you? Yeah. Nice and loud, because there's construction out here.
When I finished the book, I was reading the acknowledgments, and it made me think, how many people did this book have to go through before it became published?
I know, so many, right? The acknowledgments of all of my books tend to be longer than some people, because some people will thank 3 people and their editor and their agent. I go, on another page. But partly it's because this book took so long to ripen. It just did. So some of those people are like my cousins and my sister-in-law, who I'd say, and my husband and my kids and my brothers, who would read the book and give me thoughts. But part of it, some of those agents who said no, thank you, but who gave me a good idea, they would probably be shocked to know that I acknowledged them. But they gave me a good idea. It doesn't hurt me to add, 2 words. And if I'm a little bit grateful to somebody, I put the words in. And then for some people are like, wow, I got acknowledged. Plus, I often have young people work for me. If a couple of years from now you write me at carolweston.com and say, I heard you twice at Center for Fiction, I want to be an author, or I'm an English major, or I can help you, I think, I might say, come to my house, work with me. Because sometimes it's intern and free, and sometimes I give a little money, but the point is, I learn from you too, And so I guess I've already made that clear. I need help. You guys need help because you're young. I need help, and I'm a successful grown-up, but I still am always happy when people help me. So if people read a book, I'm working right now on a book about this princess from Spain. I have to do my party trick. ¿Quién aquí habla español? Alta la mano si hablas español. Yo también hablo español, fíjate. Por eso Sofía es bilingüe. So, that got your attention, right? So basically, I lived in Spain for a couple of years. I went, why is my Spanish so good? Well, there's this guy named Juan Antonio Martin Rodriguez. And when I was a young thing and my Spanish wasn't very good, we started going out. And the funny thing is, I'm a pretty quick learner with the languages. So every date, I'd speak a little better because I had a little writing notebook where I'd write all the words that I learned in English and Spanish and, the turns of phrase. And then I'd get, the next date, I was like, ¿Cómo estás? Bien? Me alegro, But I would get better and better and better. So then, on the, 6 weeks in, he's like, tú eres inteligente. And I'm like, hombre, claro, But I think he didn't realize that I was I think he thought I was nice, because I'm nice, but I don't think he thought I was as smart as I am, and you guys are smart too, so it's not a bad thing to compliment yourself if we all self-esteem building here. But he realized that I could talk Spanish. I could speak his language. Anyway, what a nice man. He's acknowledged in the book too. Isn't that nuts? I acknowledged my boyfriend from way back when because the Madrid scenes, I would email him and I'd go, so we're going to scatter the mom's ashes. That doesn't spoil anything. In Spain, but like, what bus would they get from the airport to go to Segovia? And he'd say, bus numero 11. And I go, okay, bus number 11. So he's in the acknowledgments too. And it is very highly unusual that I am still friends with ex-boyfriends, but guess what? Remember when I told you when you pick a boyfriend, it's not like, yay, I have a boyfriend. I got a boyfriend. How do I get a boyfriend? You don't get a boyfriend. You make a relationship with somebody wonderful. So because most of my ex-boyfriends are wonderful, I tried to keep them in my life, even though it's not easy. So pick good people, kind people, and be kind yourselves. Don't be mean. Yes.
If you had to write one last book, what would it be about, and what message would you convey to your readers?
I had to write one last book. Well, I hope I have a couple more in me. And I hope they don't all take 10 years. That's a great question. I sort of feel like this book, since I've got this book on the brain, I feel like the messages, and this doesn't spoil anything either, but in this book are, time doesn't heal, but it helps. Time really helps. If you're going through something horrendous, guess what? In a few years or months or days or weeks, it will feel less bad. So kind of like hang in there is almost a message in this book. Gosh, I'm wondering if there's other, it's funny, like an English teacher will say, what is the message of the book? But sometimes we authors are like, I don't know, what was the message? And there might have been a couple messages. I'm going to think about that one on the subway home. But, I feel like it's such a cliche, but I feel like the kindness thing is really, things take time and be kind. And they're just so basic, but they're so, I don't know how you guys feel about our president, but I don't feel like he's a kind person. I don't even feel like he's, the whole go out with people who are kind and smart. Well, Melania got rich, but she didn't necessarily get, kind and smart and compassionate, So, anyway, that's a good question. I got to think about it. In this book, though, it's sort of, I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. What is the message? Yes.
What have you learned about yourself while writing The Speed of Life?
What have I learned? What have I learned by writing The Speed of Life? Well, the actual writing process, the fact that it took so long, persistence. Because some people here are probably super talented in whatever it is you're super talented in. You're dancers. You're artists. You're incredible at fill in the blank. So part of being young is figuring out what you're mighty good at that you also enjoy. Like you might be fabulous at math, but it doesn't quite fulfill you, and that's fair, but figure out what does and go see Hidden Figures, and maybe you get excited about math and science again. But the fact that, yes, I am a talented writer at this point. I should hope I can go ahead and pat myself on the back, and I'm a good person. I'm dear Kate, dear Carol. But it still took so much effort to get somebody else to say, yes, I will publish this book. So not giving up. That's not the message in the book. Sophia doesn't have that struggle. I, Carol Weston, author of this book, had to not give up. And I wasn't going to give up because I loved this book and I loved my own father. And I felt this, when I wrote this one scene where she's talking, doesn't spoil anything, on Mother's Day to the tree that gets planted. And, it might bring a tear to your eye. I don't know. While I was writing it, I was like sobbing at the keyboard. I mean, it's good my tears didn't like ruin, you can't get your keyboard wet. I'm like weeping because I was saying, Sophia's saying about her mother, wow, you're like dead now and you're going to stay dead. You have your dead person that you love, you keep them safe inside you, and that is true. But they also, you can't talk to them about your problems and stuff. And, it's sad. So just not giving up and keeping going. Sophia's job is, yes, her mom has died, but she's alive. You got to keep going. You got to do your best for yourself. More questions. I hope we still have time and stuff. I think we do. Yes. Yep.
What advice do you have for young writers?
Well, what advice do I have for young writers? Okay, so this summer, I want you to keep a writing journal, you know? And it can be partly just venting about stuff, and it can be partly about, you know, beautiful or interesting things, or maybe you saw a movie and, you know, you want to write about it. So writing, honestly, keep writing. Your age, it's keep writing. It's not so much I need to get an agent, I need to get published. It's just get fluid with words and keep reading. Writing and reading, that's pretty basic. But at some point, when you are reading a book, you can also ask yourself, and I didn't learn this trick till like my 40s, wow, Carol Weston made me cry a little bit, or made me almost tear up in this book. How did she do it? So in other words, you're just going to be reading, most of you are like reading it and enjoying it, but if you want to be a writer, you're going to like, wait, what did she do that she made me laugh out loud? What did she do that she made me cry or almost cry? And also you might stop and put the book down and go, what is going to happen next? And you might say to yourself, if I were writing this book, I might do X or Y, you know? If you're a builder, you don't just take a walk in someplace and go, man, these are beautiful houses. You would go, wow, look what they did with that roof. That was really interesting, you know? And if you're an artist, I guess when I go to the art museum, I just go, this is so beautiful. Thank you for painting these beautiful paintings that I can look at. And I also, like, if I looked at this guy over here in the art museum, I would go, I wonder what he's like. I wonder whether he was a nice person or a badass or a hard ass, or, you know, what kind of person was he? Did I just say that? I did. You know, and like, is he going to go home and yell at somebody, or is he going to go home and give candy to the poor? So I sort of tell myself stories a little bit. But, yes. Sorry. Oh, you didn't have a question. Who else had a question? Second question.
What advice do you think
Never give up if it really matters. By the way, thank you, because never give up is not good advice. If you like a guy and he just isn't giving you the time of day, then it's not giving up. It's sort of realizing maybe we weren't destined. Who else can catch my eye out there? You know? And if you try to, I don't know, some sport and it's just not happening, giving up, or, you know, you're a violinist, but you're not that great at violin and you don't even like it anymore. Giving up lessons is not giving up, it's figuring out what you're good at. So, you know, but if something really, really, really matters to you and your gut is saying, we aren't done here, then keep going. Yes?
what made you write The Speed of Life?
What made me write Speed of Life? Okay, that's a good question that I have not answered. A couple of things. I told you my dad died and that I, you know, went through all these feelings. But because I'm Dear Carol at Girls Life magazine, sometimes girls write me and they say, Dear Carol, my mom died in January and I'm still not over it. And it's just kind of heartbreaking because I think, dear, you know, Megan, you're not going to ever really and truly get over it. What you're going to do is there's a big hole in your life and you're going to figure out how to walk around that hole. You know, but you're not going to get over your mom's death. I didn't get over my dad's death, but here I am, a writer and all that. I didn't just sit under the tree and suck my thumb and cry. By the way, that's what my shrink said to me. Remember I told you I got some therapy? He said, okay, so your mom wanted to write a novel, and she's supportive, but not like a total mommy who's just always, gosh, you're wonderful, honey. That wasn't my mom, you know. My dad was like that, but then he died. So my shrink, this sounds so mean, but what he said was, okay, so your mom's, you know, kind of tough on you and your dad's dead. You could sit under a tree and suck your thumb, or, that's the Kleenex, but then I was like, or you can kind of get on with it, you know, and take a deep breath and figure out what you like to do and what your strong suits are. And so I think I wanted to give other girls hope, you know, because really, Sophia starts this book, she needs some wind in her sails, and don't we all sometimes? But she's like this little, you know, balloon sitting on the floor, you know, and she just needs some air. And so the fact that girls write me and say, you know, my dad died, my mom died, and my friends were there for me, but now they're kind of not, and I'm still sad. I've gotten that letter. And in life, I've seen a few people, you know, who died suddenly. I mean, I know 2 women who died of an aneurysm. It's very, very rare. But, you know, they were here one day and gone the next, and I just feel for their kids because I am an empathetic person. More questions? Yes.
She has a question, but she's a little shy. She
Yeah.
wants to
Okay.
know, have you started writing your personal novel already? And if you haven't, what would it be about? Would it be like an autobiography?
So when she means personal novel, what do you mean personal novel? Do you mean like a memoir, or do you mean
Like
this?
you mentioned you wanted to write a novel.
Oh, well, I mean, okay, so good question. I have written, at this point, this is my 16th book. 8 of them are nonfiction, like for girls only, for teens only, girl talk about guys, private and personal, and also Had a Honeymoon and From Here to Maternity. Those are all nonfiction. The fiction ones, 4 were about Melanie Martin, 3 were about Ava and Pip, and then 1 is Speed of Life. This might be a standalone. Look, if it becomes a movie and everybody loves it, I will write a sequel. I'll get off that cliffhanger and figure out what's next, you know. But I think that I'm probably leaving these characters where they are and writing about other people. Someday, wouldn't it be wonderful if I decided that people would care if I wrote a memoir and I did it? That could happen. That would be satisfying and fun. But the next novel fiction I'm probably going to write is this one. And yes, I have started. It's funny because right now it's not that good. My hope is that it'll be really good. My vision is this amazing book. But I'm like in revision number 87, and probably I'll do, you know, draft number 200 or something. Maybe not quite that many, but honestly, it's not 10. It's not 10 revisions. It really is more like 25 revisions. So I gave it to my agent, and she was like, you know, Carol, you're really good at the voice thing, and I don't yet hear Margarita's voice. And believe it or not, even that was helpful. It was like, oh my gosh, I am good at the voice thing. Why haven't I given her like the voice yet? I think the answer is because I've been so busy with research. Because this, I told you I like art museums. This is the most famous painting in Spain and Madrid and the Prado. Every single kid, if you were a Spaniard, if you were Spanish from Spain, you would totally know that this is part of Las Meninas, this giant painting. And you would think it's kind of cool that I want to tell you the real story. Like it's like, you know, the Mona Lisa, you can picture the Mona Lisa, right? Nobody knows much about her, so there's not actually a real story there. Well, this girl, nobody really knows about her, but she was a princess, so it's not that hard to dig and find out about her. So anyway, I've done a whole bunch of research, but I don't think I've done a good enough job yet with like basics like plot and voice. So at some point I have to get out of the library and figure out what the story and the message, and you know, so that I can answer your questions. What's the message with that book? Once I figure that out, maybe I'll be able to write the book. Yes?
How did being in how this affect help you create how the other characters go about your take?
Wow, how did being an advice columnist help me write how the other characters feel about Dear Kate? Well, because I am lucky enough to visit lots of schools as Dear Carol, sometimes there is a kid who's like, you know, I love your advice. I've been reading Dear Carol since I was 9 or whatever, and, you know, can't believe they're meeting me. And then everyone else is like, wait, Dear who? Girl's Life? What is this magazine? And so, you know, and I get some letters like, your favorite fan or whatever, and other people who just, I have a problem. But so I kind of thought that'd be a fun dynamic. And certainly as Dear Carol, I get all sorts of advice. So those letters, you know, there's nothing where it was like just, I mean, novelists have to invent and stuff. But a lot, like I did get a letter that's in the book that says, oh shoot, it's such a nice letter. I don't know if I'm gonna find it. It's kind of in December. It was such a short, lovely letter. But like how can you, goodness gracious. Oh, what do you do when the only person who can make you stop crying is the person who made you cry? You know? And that girl, whoever wrote me, was just like, that was just one line in a long letter, but it's like, it's kind of heartbreaking, you know, because we've all been there. Do you think teenagers are too young to experience love? Or this one, I begged my mom for a cell phone, and I got one, and I put a bottle of water in my bag, and the cap must not have been on right because the cell got all wet and died, and now I'm afraid my mom's going to kill me. You know, I've gotten maybe 3 or 4 versions of that letter. So sometimes just my actual mailbag helped to create that character. And of course, Dear Kate, just like Dear Carol, she's not perfect. She's got her flaws. She's a real person. So it was also fun in this book to not make Dear Kate this perfect person. She's a little selfish in the book. Such good questions. More questions? Yes.
Did anyone in your family ever discipline
Did you say encourage?
No, disapprove.
Oh, disapprove. Wow, discourage. That's really interesting. No, I don't think anybody disapproved. I think they also realized that I'm not this angry person who's going to write the story of my brother and embarrass him publicly or something like that. Some people choose to do that, and they lose friends, and sometimes it's not even a great work after all, and they lost friends for absolutely nothing. I'm not that kind of person, so nobody really disapproved. My husband writes also, so sometimes if something happens to us as a family, we have to like, is that yours to write? Is that mine to write? Is that both of ours to write? That's kind of interesting. I will say that with my mother, because she wanted to write a novel, it was a little bit complicated because she approved and was proud, but it was a little bit hard for her to just be so very proud because I was kind of doing what she meant to do. But mother-daughter stuff, that's complicated. But this Sunday, just love your moms if you have them. And I guess let me turn that back to you. If there's somebody in your life who's disapproving, or any of you who's disapproving, then, prove them wrong. My dad, who I, talk about so glowingly, I'm glad you helped me remember this. When I was not that much older than you guys, maybe 19, I noticed that 17 magazine had a essay column that you had to be a teenager. So you weren't competing with grown-up writers like me, you were kind of competing with other teenagers. And it said, do women spoil men? So I was in the kitchen with my dad, and I said, I just noticed like you have to be a teenager to write an answer to this thing. So I thought I would do it. And my dad, who loved me, said, you're going to just march it right upstairs and write a column for a national magazine? And I was like, yes. And he said, well, it sounds like not that easy. And I said, well, I can do it. So maybe he was being a little discouraging, and somehow it made me go, yes, I will. And then I did. And then they gave me $100 and put my photo in the magazine. And all of a sudden I was a writer. And that Christmas they gave me, 17, gave me like a little gift came in the mail. And I was so honored. I called them and thanked them. And they said, well, you're one of our writers. I was like, oh my God, I'm a writer, And so in some ways his not being discouraging in a mean way, but his you might have a big brother who said, you're not going to be a dancer. Your voice isn't that great. You're not, your art, you think you're so full of yourself. It's not that good. So you got to pull them in the school magazines. School magazine, you can give yourself all those voices. You can discourage yourself, or you can hear them out there. But your job is to not listen too much, because we all have the person on this shoulder going, it's just not that good. All those rejections, I could have just said, yeah, it's not that good. But you have the voice on this shoulder, seriously, you all do. And you have to puff it up, and you have to help it be less shy and say, you're onto something. You're really good. Wow, look at you. Look at this letter you got. Look at this letter you wrote. Look at what you're up to. Yay, you. You know what? Yay, you. That is one of the takeaways. Just say yay, you. And my sister-in-law, when I was sad because nobody would publish this book or any of the Ava books, and I had 8 years, quite recently, ridiculously recently, where nobody was publishing my stuff. Sorry if I'm going on about this, but I had 12 books come out and do well, and then I had 8 years where people were just like, nah, and I wasn't done. I was like, I am not done. I'm not done. I got to get back in that boxing ring. And then suddenly a source book said, yeah, we like Ava, and the New York Times gave it a great review, and then I did 2 more, and then same publisher said, yeah, we like this book. So suddenly I was back. So you have to just puff yourself up. And when my sister-in-law knew that I was I wasn't depressed, like I need meds, but I was sad, she was like, you have to tell yourself, yay, you. So you have to tell yourselves, yay, you. Okay, more questions? Questions? Oh, come on. Do you have another question? Okay, way back there, question. Yes. Yep.
So
Nice and loud.
when you were coming up with the idea of Dear Kate, were you basing it off of Dear Carol?
Yeah, she's kind of a little bit based off Dear Carol. Yeah. No, the funny thing about this book is I'm a little bit Sophia because I lost a parent early, and I'm a little bit Dear Kate because I'm an advice columnist. I'm really not Alexa, and I'm not Greg. But with Ava and Pip, I don't know if I was anybody so much, you know, the Ava XOX, although I'm a little bit of Ava. But if you're a writer, you're going to grab up, you're going to steal, they say, from everywhere. I think of it as grabbing up. But, you know, you're going to take from your own life, you're just going to be observing. You know, the advice for writers? Observe, you know, notice stuff. I mean, it's funny, I think it might have been at Center for Fiction and other schools where I noticed that some kids had the you know, headscarves, and I thought, well, I'm just going to put that in Ava and Pip and not make it about diversity, just make it diversity among us. We who live in New York City, everybody's diverse. You get on the subway and, you know, it's all diverse. You get out into the heartlands where, you know, sometimes we'll be in a whole place where everybody's white and they're talking about diversity in books, and I just think, wow, my whole life is diverse, you know? It's not, so then these reviews were like, multicultural characters. I wasn't looking to make characters multicultural, they just were. One more question. Yes?
Is there an author that you haven't met but you look up to?
Oh, gosh, I guess there are a lot of authors I haven't met that I look up to. Some of them are dead, but of alive ones, I was just noticing, I think it's like right behind you over there, the Nicks. Well, actually, on that shelf, yeah, the Nicks and Jonathan Franzen. Oh, no, I met him, Jonathan Franzen. I went and heard him speak for free at the library. But the Nicks is really a good book, and if I met that author, I'd say, wow, that was a really good book. And I bet it took him forever, too. I'm reading a book right now, and Rosie, who organized all this at the Center for Fiction, she said, oh, he spoke here just last week. The book is called A Gentleman in Moscow. So I would say the answer is, yeah, a whole bunch of them. Do we have time for one last question? Maybe there isn't even one last question. Is there one last question? Yes. Say it again. What is the favorite part of my book? Ooh, this is a good last question. Are you ready? For the favorite part of the book, this doesn't spoil anything because I'll make it very unclear, but there's a kiss in the windmill, and it's on the one hand PG-13, but on the other hand, it's a pretty steamy PG-13 kiss. So that's a good, so those of you who are like getting bogged down because there's so many words, keep turning the pages. Thank you so much. I look forward to signing your books and meeting you personally, and you're awesome.